4th grade! Today I'm going to be reading chapter 13 with you. Feel free to get out your book and follow along. I will be stopping at 4 points to ask a question. This does not have to be set up as a 4 square. If you want to do it in your Google Doc, you can just put number 1 and then go through. I will have the 4 questions written down into the description of the video below. Also, if I say the question and you need some time to think a little bit, pause the video and you can do it right away instead of having to go back and do them later. So, we are going to be starting on chapter 13. If you have this book, you will be looking at page 171. So, chapter 13 is in which Alienora discovers an unexpected use for soap and water, and Cimorene has difficulty with the dragon. Alright, once you're here, we are starting off the top of 171. Antorell looked past Cimorene and Alienora as if they were not there, and spoke directly to the Stone Prince. I told Father someone was listening. He won't be happy when he finds out I was right, but he'll feel better when I tell him I've taken care of things. He might even let me have the first look in the King's crystal once Warog gives it to us. So that's what you're after, Cimorene said. Antorell favored her with a superior smile. Quite right, Princess Cimorene. The King's crystal will show us the whereabouts of every piece of useful and interesting magic in the world. All we'll have to do is go out and pick them up. Somehow I don't think it will be that easy, Cimorene murmured. We knew Tokaz would never give it to us, but Warog will, as soon as he's king of the dragons. He'll have to, or we'll tell everyone how we were the ones who made sure he was the new king. Of course, we can't afford to have anybody around who might make awkward revelations. I doubt that dragons will listen to a couple of hysterical princesses. But he, Antorell pointed at the Stone Prince, will have to go. What are you going to do? Alienora demanded. She was plainly frightened, and Cimorene could see that her knuckles were white with the force of her grip on the handle of the scrub bucket. Oh, gravel seems appropriate, don't you think? Antorell said. No one will notice a few more rocks around here. Ought I to be taking this person seriously? The Stone Prince said in a rather doubtful tone. You'd better if you don't want to end up as a lot of little pebbles, Alienora answered. She still sounded frightened, but she seemed to be getting a grip on herself. He's a wizard. You wouldn't be talking about gravel if you were the one who had to sweep the floor, Cimorene said to Antorell. She stepped forward as she spoke, hoping to get between Antorell and the Stone Prince before Antorell noticed what she was doing. She didn't think Antorell was a good enough wizard to do any real harm, but there was no point in taking chances. Stay where you are, Princess Cimorene, Antorell commanded. I'll deal with you in a moment. Must you be so theatrical? Cimorene said. Theatrical? You think I'm being theatrical? Antorell said furiously. I am simply showing a proper respect for the importance of this moment. You're showing off, Cimorene said flatly, and you're not doing it very well. He doesn't sound much like a wizard to me, the Stone Prince said. Is he always like this? Enough! Antorell cried and raised his staff. Alright, this is going to be first pause. A reflection question for right now. Now, each of these questions I'm going to give to you is not one said answer. It's sort of your interpretation from reading. That you do need to be looking at the text and... Colby. Looking at the text and thinking about what it... Oh my gosh, relax. Thinking about what it says and kind of how it affects the story. I want you to answer in complete sentences. I'd say 2 to 3 sentences per answer. Not going to be a whole paragraph, but you need to have some explanation. Don't just be like, I think this. I'll give you an example. So first question is, why do you think Antorell considers the prince a threat, but not the princesses? So based on what you might believe, why someone would think that way, and what you've seen from him in the story. Now, if you just put, because he's made of rock. one, not a complete sentence, but two, doesn't really make sense with what's going on as to why he would think he was a threat and not the princesses. So think about what's happening in the story, and then think from your own experience or why you think someone would have a mindset like that, and then write out 2 or 3 sentences explaining why do you think Antorell considers the prince a threat but not the princesses. Right? If you want to stop and do that one now, you can pause the video and then keep listening when you are done with your first question. Light shimmered along its length and began to gather at the lower end. Grinning wolfishly, the wizard tilted the staff, aiming it toward the stone prince. "Stop that!" Alienora said. Antorell ignored her. "I said, stop it!" Alienora shouted, and threw her bucket at Antorell's head. Alienora's aim was off. The bucket hit Antorell's shoulder. A bolt of fire shot from the end of his staff and whizzed between Cimorene and the stone prince to strike the far wall with a whumping noise and a shower of sparks. Antorell staggered, slipped in the cascade of soapy water, and fell over the bucket, dropping his staff in the process. Cimorene darted in and kicked Antorell's staff out of his reach. He stared up at her from a mound of soggy silk and soap suds. "You can't do this to me," he shrieked. Something in his voice made Cimorene and her friends look at him more closely. Alienora's eyes went wide, and Cimorene blinked in surprise. He's collapsing," Alienora said in a stunned voice. "He's melting," Cimorene corrected her. "I can't be melting," Antorell cried. "I'm a wizard. It's not fair." His head disappeared into a small brown puddle, and his cries stopped. There was a moment of astonished silence. "I thought it was witches who melt when you dump water over them," the stone prince said at last. "It is, usually," Cimorene said. "What on earth did you put in that bucket, Alienora?" "Just water and soap and a little lemon juice to make it smell nicer," Alienora said. Said Cimorene, thinking hard. "I'll bet there's a simpler way of melting wizards, but we don't have time right now to figure out what it is. How many buckets can you get hold of in a hurry?" "Buckets?" Alienora said. "2, counting this one. And I suppose I could borrow one from Helena. That's 3. And I've got 2 in the kitchen, and I expect the iron kettle is big enough. That's 6 altogether, 2 for each of us. You will help, won't you?" Cimorene added, turning to the stone prince. "Of course," the prince assured her. "Help with what?" "Stopping those wizards," Cimorene said. "We can't let them make Warog the next king of the dragons by trickery." "I don't see how we can stop them," Alienora said. "We can't possibly get to the Fort of Whispering Snakes before the trials start, and even if we could, we don't know where the wizards will be hiding." "If we tell the dragons that Warog's trying to cheat, they'll stop the trials," Cimorene said with more confidence than she felt. "That will give us time to find the wizards. And I've got a way to get us to the ford. You go start collecting buckets. I'll meet you at your place after I get the things I'll need from Kazul's." Right. Second question. How do you think Cimorene will get them all to the ford in time? Now, once again, I don't need you to skip ahead to find a set right answer. I just want to know what you think based on your experience with Cimorene as a character and her cleverness. How do you think she's going to figure it out? What's your idea for what it might be? When you do find out how they end up doing it, I don't need you to go back and change your answer. You're not going to get marked down. I just want to see what you think going in. So this is points for prediction, not for correctness. Once again, if you're going to stop and answer your question, you're doing complete sentences. 2 to 3, you can pause this and then jump back in when you're done. What about... Alienora gestured with distaste at the wet, messy lump of robes in the center of the puddle that was all that remained of Antorell. "We'll clean it up when we get back," Cimorene said. "This is more important." Alienora nodded, and the 3 left the banquet room. The stone prince decided to accompany Alienora since he was not a fast walker, and Cimorene had farther to go. Cimorene left them when they reached the main tunnel and ran back to Gazul's cave. There, she went straight to her room and opened the drawer where she kept odds and ends. In the back left-hand corner, carefully wrapped in a handkerchief, were the 3 black feathers she had taken from beneath the left wing of the bird she had killed in the enchanted forest. She shoved the whole packet into her pocket without bothering to unwrap it, and went on to the kitchen to collect her buckets. Then she hurried through the tunnels to Warog's cave, where Alienora and the Stone Prince were waiting. When Cimorene arrived, she found the Stone Prince pumping water to fill Alienora's third bucket, while Alienora mixed soap and lemon juice into the second. Cimorene set her pots and pails next to the pump and went to help Alienora. "Now what?" Alienora said when all the buckets were full of cleaning mixture. Cimorene reached into her pocket and dug out the package. Gently, she unfolded the handkerchief and removed one of the feathers, noticing as she did that the package also contained the pebble she had picked up in the caves of fire and night. "If we each take 2 buckets, can we still link elbows without spilling too much?" she asked. Alienora and the Stone Prince looked at each other, shrugged, and picked up 2 buckets each. Cimorene took the last bucket and the iron pot, holding the handle of the pot with only 3 fingers so that she could keep a grip on the feather with her thumb and forefinger. A series of awkward maneuvers followed as Alienora and the Stone Prince tried to link elbows with Cimorene without losing their balance or dropping one of their buckets. In the process, Cimorene's skirt got soaked. "It's a good thing I'm not a wizard," Cimorene said. "Ready? Here we go." She twisted her hand toward the edge of the iron pot and let go of the black feather. "I wish we were at the ford of Whispering Snakes," she said, as the feather fell and the room dissolved around them. They materialized at the very edge of a river, on a flat, narrow rock that jutted out over the water, and Alienora immediately slipped on the wet stone. If the Stone Prince had not been so solid and heavy, all 3 of them would have fallen into the river. As it was, it took Cimorene and Alienora several seconds to regain their balance. When she was finally sure of her footing, Cimorene breathed a sigh of relief and quickly looked about her. The ford of Whispering Snakes was crowded. Dragons of all sizes and shades of green lined the banks of the river and filled the spaces beneath the towering trees of the enchanted forest. On the far bank, a pale dragon was poring over a parchment list that Cimorene thought she remembered seeing during one of the many errands she had run the previous night. All the dragons seemed to be talking at once, and none of them noticed Cimorene and her friends. "Hello, dragons!" Cimorene shouted, trying to make herself heard above the noise. "Here now, what's all this?" an olive green dragon on the bank demanded, turning. "Someone's trying to sneak a look at the trials." "Sneaks," hissed a soft but nonetheless clearly audible voice from somewhere near Cimorene's feet. Cimorene jumped and looked down, but though she craned her neck to see all around her, she could not find the second speaker. "Get rid of them before Traum comes back with Colin's stone," another dragon advised. "We aren't trying to sneak in, and we don't care about watching the trials," Cimorene said, wishing she dared to look around for Kazul. "We came to warn you about the wizards." "Wizards," the soft voice echoed. "Wizards," the olive green dragon said skeptically. "There aren't any wizards here." "No, but they figured out some way of interfering with your choice of the next king," Cimorene said. "They're hiding somewhere. You have to put off the trials with Colin's stone until we can find them and stop them. If you'll just tell Kazul we're here." "Put off the trials?" the olive green dragon interrupted. "Impossible. They've been underway for half an hour. We can't just stop at the middle. Who are all you people anyway?" A flicker of motion caught Cimorene's eye, and she looked down just in time to see a thin red snake dart from one clump of weeds to the next. "Sneaks," whispered the soft voice an instant later. "Sneaks and wizards." "I wasn't asking you," the dragon said severely in the general direction of the snake. "And whatever they certainly aren't wizards." "They look like somebody's princesses to me," a blue-green dragon said. "Pity that. It would be so much simpler to eat them and get them out of the way." "Are you sure?" said a third dragon. "The one on the end doesn't look like a princess." "I'm beginning to think this wasn't such a good idea," the Stone Prince said. "He may not be a princess, but he doesn't look edible either," the blue-green dragon pointed out. And these other two are definitely princesses. You can't go eating them out of hand. Princesses, hissed the voice from under the rock. Oh, princesses, the olive green dragon said. No wonder they're so full of wild tales. It's true, Cimorene said desperately. If you don't believe us, take us to Kazul. She will. I can't do that, the olive green dragon said, shocked. Kazul's third in line now, after Mazarin and Warog. You can't talk to people who are that close to making their attempt with the stone. It would distract them. Warog? Alienor said. Warog's next in line? Yes, he should be starting off any minute now, said the olive green dragon. Then comes Mazarin, then Kazul. I don't expect it will take long, though. Nobody's carried the stone for more than a mile or two yet. But I'm Kazul's princess, Cimorene said. I don't care who you are, the dragon replied crossly. You can't talk to Kazul until she's done with her turn. That will be too late, Cimorene cried. You don't understand. Warog and the wizards. I've had enough of your wizards, the olive green dragon said. You're a confounded nuisance, and you ought not to be pushing your way in here when you're not wanted. Go away. Cimorene, what are we going to do? Alienor said, as the olive green dragon turned and stalked determinedly away. At Heroes School, we were always taught that if you couldn't persuade anyone to help you with something, it meant that you were supposed to do it by yourself, the Stone Prince said diffidently. And we are prepared. He lifted one of his buckets slightly. But we don't know where the wizards are, Alienor said. We have to find them before we can stop them, and there isn't time. Stop the wizards, whispered the soft voice. That's the first sensible thing you've said since we got here, Cimorene said to the hissing whisper. All right, third question. Why are the dragons not listening to Cimorene and her friends? So, based off what's going on in the story and the way they're acting, some of the things they've said, why are they not listening to Cimorene and Alienor and the Stone Prince and their warning? Once again, if you want to stop and do the question now, pause the video, then you can jump back in with me. Also, look how cute. Oh, hi there. Okay. Can't you just wish to be where the wizards are? The Stone Prince asked Cimorene. No, you have to know where you're going, or the spell doesn't work, Cimorene said. For a moment, all three were glumly silent. Cimorene stared at the water, remembering how and where she had gotten the feathers. Suddenly, she raised her head. We may not know where the wizards are, but I'll bet I know someone who can find out. Hold this for a minute. Cimorene handed one of her buckets to Alienora, then dug out the packet of feathers. She pulled the second feather from the packet and grabbed Alienora's elbow. Hold tight, everybody. I wish we were at Morwen's house, Cimorene said, and dropped the feather. The scenery shifted abruptly, and they were standing on Morwen's porch. The house was just as tidy-looking as Cimorene remembered, and the porch floor gleamed as if it had just been washed. A black and white cat, startled by their sudden appearance, fell off the porch railing. 4 others left off washing themselves to stare at Cimorene with unwinking green and yellow eyes. I need to talk to Morwen, Cimorene said to the cats. It's an emergency. A lean, tiger-striped cat rose and oozed through a crack in the door. Cimorene unwound herself from Alienora and the Stone Prince and set her bucket on the porch floor. I hope this works, she muttered to herself as Alienor and the prince placed their buckets beside hers. All right, last question of the chapter. Morwen is very no-nonsense and clever. What do you think she will do to help stop the wizards? So, based off what you know about Morwen as a person, how do you think she's going to help? Now, as a reminder, each of these needs to be complete sentences, 2 to 3 sentences. It should not be just because Morwen's a witch. Okay, yes, we know that. That can be part of your explanation. That cannot be your whole explanation. 2 to 3 sentences per question. There are only 4 questions. They're all in the description of this video if you want to go back and look at them. And if you have any further questions about what I'm asking or what we read, reach out to me over email and we can schedule time to talk, or I can answer them quickly then so that you know what's going on. I'm excited as we get closer and closer to kind of culminating moments in this book, and I hope you guys are enjoying it and some of the drama. I will talk to you guys later. Bye, 4th grade!